Today, as we've been promising, it's Midland 2001. Now, this is kind of double, but it isn't. So, Alan, the kind benefactor in North Lincolnshire, has very, very kindly sent this Midland 2001. And it comes with a Midland mic, though this isn't the mic these came with. They came with the matching bluey grey. We went through the RAL colour of this before, didn't we? And it's also come with a power lead, which is always very welcome, though we manufacture these power leads from genuine parts. So it's, what's that? December 1981. And it also comes with its thumb screws, which is also useful and welcome. So thank you, Alan, for that. Now, this other one, Mark's looked at it and he said it's a non-worker. I don't know whether it was he who pointed it out to me or whether it was somebody else who pointed it out to me. But in fact, I bought this off eBay and it's an illegal AM set. If I'd have looked, it's got the FCC panel on the back and it has a Uniden type connector instead of the type of connector which all the Maxons of the 80s had. And if you look, it's even got the sockets in a different position and the aerial connector in a different position. It'll be earlier as well, won't it? It's August 78. Just put the other glasses on, see diddly squat. August 1979, so it's 14 months older. Now this is still illegal to own in the UK. So don't think for a minute that because we can use AM on CPT, you can use some old plonker from America. You can't. Interference specification is not up to standard. There was a window in the 80s that you could have AM sets like this converted, subject to it being type approved conversion with people offering that service. And you paid the government £16.50, it was sent for inspection, and you got back a certificate with the serial number. And so don't think you had to relinquish. And that £16.50 wasn't just for the test fee; it was lost VAT and customs from them having smuggled in. That window of opportunity ended, I think it was about 91, 92. So now anything like this has to be destroyed, and this video will see this being destroyed, I promise you. The last thing I want to do is to be caught with something like that. And I think I paid £15 for it. I thought, oh, that's a nice set for £15 with a bit of a dodgy knob. But what I want to do today is see whether the case panels actually fit, because I've probably got a scrap chassis we've bought along the way of a 2001 which we could probably build back up by using this scrap AM one. Would still be short of a knob there, but there is that possibility. Of course, these green displays are like rocking horse, aren't they? Rocking horse droppings. So we'll open this one up. So this is, because it's been given to me, it's not a repair as such, it's my set. We will power up the American one. I think we'll do that first. We'll take the screws out of that. doesn't look very messed with at all, that. Tell you what, I don't think this does either. So, for a start, yeah, it's exactly the same. So everything lines up, it's exactly the same. So, you know, even the speakers, I mean, what are they to buy these days? A fiver. These mounting things, everything is fantastic and useful. So you've got a totally different layout between the AM1 and the UK FM1. So you've still got the same reference crystal, which is 10.24, so you can use that. But of course, a different synthesizer. This uses a C13 LC71. Yeah. Can't even read it. It's got crud on it. LC7130, and this of course uses the LC7137. So the channels are programmed into these in a double locked ROM. So there's a bit more screening in the AM1. It potentially gives out a lot more. I think it's 12 times interference on AM than FM, if I remember my training. So you've got a difference here. These use a TA7205 Toshiba audio chip, and it's used as the modulator and the audio output. But on these, it's a KIA, a Kia 7205, which is Kia's version of the Toshiba's TA7205, but it's slimmer, and they're not interchangeable. So you think, oh, audio, say, which is very, very difficult to get for these, remarkably difficult to get, but that doesn't fit. Same filter, it's the HT, and wherever it is on here, it's there. It is the same filter. It's probably the same coil for the VCO, but that's about where it ends. But nevertheless, there are useful parts in AM sets. Oh, the big key difference, when if you're just presented with printed circuit boards taken away from the case, like we sometimes buy off eBay, the big difference between any AM and FM set is the modulation transformer on an AM set, whereas that's just a power input choke. There's your power input choke on the AM1, and there it is on the FM1. So we have learned that the case parts do fit, and that's well worth knowing. And of course, you can use that 3-pin socket when you get one of those Uniden sets in that's had the socket broken. I've had to pay £9 for one of those before now, so that's worth having. So you've got, I mean, theoretically, this coil will be the same as that coil, and that coil looks like it's the same as that. I would think they are, and that coil is going to be the same as that coil, because you're on a similar frequency, aren't you? This is just a little tiny bit lower than what the UK channels are on. So a lot of this stuff is going to be the same. You probably find the numbers on some of these Taco coils are the same as well. So they are a useful source of spares. But I'm annoyed I paid £15 for that, but Alan has cancelled my annoyance out by very kindly giving me this one, and therefore, I'll tell you what, the AM set's got a better meter. It's faded on this set, but I'm not going to swap them over. Especially as it's for me. This has seen less use, this AM one. So we'll put that to one side. Oh, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll power this up. Just do it with the crocodile clips. I don't have a Uniden type of power connector lurking. So connect it up to the test gear. I don't think used sets like this in America are worth like the used sets in the UK are. I think there's a lot more prolific. What would probably fetch $5 that in America. There's no point putting it on eBay for United States sales only, because obviously I couldn't allow it to be sold into Europe. So we'll power that up, and we'll just power it up at full whack, 13.8 volts. Right, so it lights up, and this is a useful test because we want to know that that channel display is working, and it is. We'll pop it on channel 20. I'm going to have to reset my test gear somewhat. I expect these get just as fiddled with as FM sets do. Noisy volume control. So let's put picture in picture on. Yeah, it's transmitting. See what power it's doing. It's doing 3.2 watts. And we'll switch to AM. I'll have to retune the modulation meter in this case. Wallow. 1 2 1 2 1 2 wallow. 1 2 1 2 wallow. We've actually got no transmitted audio on it. Now, of course, that could be a Duff mic, couldn't it? So before we say it's got a Duff, well, I'll tell you what, we could have tried it in PA. But we'll use the standard test mic. Wallow. Yeah, it is working. It's the mic that doesn't work. Wallow. Wallow. And that is more, that's beyond 90% modulation, which is probably a little higher than you'd want. So we'll keep that standard test mic out, and we'll look into what's wrong with the one that's been supplied by Alan later on. We'll plug that back in. We'll just look at the receive on this. So 27.205 for channel 20 on FCC channels. So there it is receiving. Let's see what the synad meter reads. Okay, well, it's a pretty crummy 3.8 microvolts. 3.8 microvolts for 10 decibel synad. But it like the UK says, it's probably been messed with. So basically it does work and would require, no doubt, just a straightforward service. We'll just try it in public address mode. So I'll unplug our test equipment, we'll plug in the public address speaker. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2. And on this type of set you can't control the volume, which is really clever not. So there you are, a good set to have for parts, but not worth the 15 quid that I ended up paying, plus postage of course. So we'll just pop this out. I'll tell you what we're going to do to destroy it. I can't get that screw out, can I? Because it's the wrong one. Need a tiny Phillips screwdriver. Throw throttle away. It's totally the wrong kind of thing. So it's quite straightforward. Just disconnect it. What we need to do is to remove the modulation transformer. I don't know whether these parts are part of that. Don't know how many pins it's got. I'd only expect 3, to be honest, but hopefully we can pull that out. Chop that wire off. I can lever it out, it doesn't matter whether I damage anything. There we are, modulation transformer. Throw that away. The set can no longer transmit, and therefore it's now a scrap set. So, got to make sure I've got the right lid now. Oh dear. Yeah, I think I got it the right way round. So now we'll move on to this one. Right, get this plugged into the test gear. See whether this works on PA. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. And you can alter the volume on this one, whereas on the AM1 for some reason you couldn't. But some of those great sets you can't alter the volume. So we're on channel 20. Does the TX light work? It does, that's a miracle. So now we need to reset the test gear to 2779125. I left over him. God is love with his care. Right. Yes, we've been regulating the ranks of pipe on our pipe organ, and it's quite time consuming getting them all the same volume. You have to either open up or close up the holes in the foot of the pipe, and it's I remember when I did my apprenticeship spending 3 days doing nothing but with your head in a pipe organ whilst the boss decided which ones were too quiet and too loud, and you had to deal with it. I'm probably a bit less fussy than he was. Midland 2001. So we're going to press the transmit button. We'll show that on there. and let's see what power we've got on this one. So I think it's just doing 3 watts, yeah. Deviation, we'll just switch back to FM. We'll have to retune for FM. Wallow, wallow, wallow. It's 1.8 to 2 kilohertz. It's a bit low. Frequency. The test gear's been on long enough to be a valid reading. (2779,105). So that's neither here nor there. We'll do that while we're here. That'll make absolutely no difference. But whilst it's being serviced, it's something you attend to. It'd have to be like 0.75 for it to be starting to be noticeable. So that's done. It equals 2779,125. And the receive. Go over to the synod meter. .6 of a microvolt for 12 dB synod is fine. So yeah, it's working. It's a little low on power. It's a little low on transmitted audio with deviation there. So just kind of servicing. We won't be bothering with the VCO because the set is working, and as I've said quite a lot of times, most of the time the VCO checking components aren't actually fitted. You actually have to fit 4 parts in order to test it the proper way, and they will do it at the factory on a pin jig. See how they can cut costs? I've got the trader service sheet here, as well as the manufacturer's instruction book, which comes with the Maxcom 4E, which is of course the same set. So we've got that, which is a bit better, but so we'll start by going through transmit. I like to do it that way around. Smooth me extension speaker lead. So here goes. So we're going up this way. I've got the soldering iron on because they're going to want the wax melting. I'm going to start on the 3 watt scale because I can just see, it's easy to see tiny differences on a smaller scale. That wanted a tiny bit adjustment there. Remember, when you buy new sets, they also do about 2.7 watts out of the box. The supplying dealer is supposed to bring them up to spec, but because it's so competitive and people buy on best price, most of the dealers don't. So we're now beyond 3 watts. Just check these once again. 3.5's where we are. So it's probably about 3.7 when it's cold. Most new sets don't go beyond 3.6. Usually these will do 4, but this one doesn't. And it really doesn't matter makes no difference. Don't think you're getting. You could buy 4 cars and they'll all be the same, and not all going to do quite the same miles a gallon. They're not all going to quite do the same acceleration. You're never going to find out what the top speed is without ending up in the clink. So that's transmit done. Now, does the transmit meter have a adjustment on this one? It's banging across beyond 5. We don't want that. Yeah, they say set for 3.8 watts. We're about 3.6, 3.7. So RV103, which is that one there, which is the one at the back, is the power meter preset. So we want it to read bang on the 4. Even though we know the set's only doing 3.5, you have it bang on the 4. That's the psychological thing which you do. And remember, I keep saying, when we've got this on an aerial, it won't still the chance of it still reading 4 on the meter are very slim, because it's only into a dummy load that can be set and that can be read right, because the relative power lead reading relative to SWR, relative to resistance or impedance and so on. So when you put it on an aerial, it's likely to be different. But don't think that when you key up, if the meter only just moves, it's only doing 1 watt, or if it bangs across, it's doing more than 4 watts. It isn't. It's a false reading because of the SWR, etc. Oh, it's banging across. This is, yeah, it makes no difference. So, deviation. And they want you to set it for 2.2, just as I would say. And it's the adjustment there. We're going to have to bring it up. We'll get the little core sine wave generator, which is a chromatic tuner. Let's bring that up a fraction. Let's try it there. Wow, that's a little bit high on the peak. Let's try it there. Wallow. Testing 1, 2. That's alright. So we've got 3.6 watts. We've got 2.0 to 2.45 kilohertz. I could have brought that up a minute little bit more, but I don't think we're going to. It would be backwards and forwards for no benefit. So that's transmit done. Let's have a look at receive. I'm going to put a hefty signal on. I'm going to put 100 microvolts. We'll go over to the oscilloscope. Just check we're still on frequency. We are. There's enough volume for a meaningful trace. These are quite notorious for this detector coil to go out on the Maxon chassis. As it happens, it hardly needed touching, but it did need a little tiny bit there. So now we'll drop the, well, go over to the cyanide meter, take the oscilloscope off, and put the attenuator such that we get about 4 dB, so we're not saturating the receiver, and we'll just go through the front end and the IF. Tell you what, that was spot on. Slight improvement there. Very slight improvement there. Drop the signal a bit. And that's it. And we're done. Let's get a new reading. So for 12 decibel cyanide, it's doing, and I'll show you, 0.6. So it's no difference whatsoever. I've gone through the motions. It's balanced out a bit differently, but it's exactly the same. Just out of interest, what's it doing for 10? It's doing 0.46 microvolts for 10. And for 20, will it do 20? Some sets do, some sets don't. It's all down to noise. 1.5. So let's look at squelch. So I'll turn the squelch to full. I want the squelch to open when I get a 100 microvolt signal equivalent to S9 on the radio. So 10 microvolts, 30 microvolts, 100 microvolts, not come in. When does it come in? Oh, it comes in about 10 millivolts. So we'll adjust the squelch control so that it does come in. Wrong way. There we go. That's now coming in as 100 microvolts. So we'll drop the squelch down to full. Sorry, to minimum. Turn the signal generator to standby. Set the squelch on the radio to threshold. Switch the signal generator back on, which is parked at 0.3 of a microvolt. It's come straight in. Wow. It's coming in at... You know what? It's coming in at 0.15 of a microvolt and leaving it 0.6 of a microvolt. Very sensitive. So, you know, just because we've seen better cyanide readings than this radio, if I turn the squelch down, that's 0.3 you're listening to. 0.2. It's hearing down to about 0.12 of a microvolt, so it's very sensitive. But there's a bit of noise with it, and that's why you've got these slightly higher cyanide reading than you may otherwise get. Now this is a situation where if you change some of the capacitors in the receiver for better quality ones, because I don't think anything's degraded, they're very reliable, the capacitors. They're not like Uniden ones. You know, I can count on one hand the capacitors have changed. It's usually because the set's been overvolted. So, but I think this is a situation where if you really, really wanted a better cyanide reading, you could change some capacitors, but it'd be very difficult because they're not the easiest sets to work on. So it'd be time consuming and expensive for no real gain, apart from a laboratory reading. So what's it supposed to do for 12 microvolts, for 12 decibel? It's supposed to be better than 1 microvolt for 20. Well, it isn't. But you know, I can jiggle the figures. So if we put the test set into PD, potential difference mode, and then we look at 20 dB now, it's now reading 0.78 microvolts for 20 dB cyanide, and for 12 dB it's reading 0.25 microvolts. So you don't know what mode they've put the test set into. I always have it in the EMF mode because that's the harder one to achieve. But you don't know what they're doing, do you, to come up with the figures? Might be like Volkswagen fuel figures. So the only thing left to do is the S meter. So we'll go back to an S9 equivalent signal. Don't know whether it's adjustable on these sets. Sometimes it is, usually it isn't. These don't have the low power option, which strictly speaking was a contravention of the MPT 1320 specification. The preset for it there would have been there. I think Plustronics, who are the importer of these, were required by our government to supply a free retrofit low power if any customer had requested it. So we've got S9 reading S5 and a bit. So it's what you'd call a lazy needle. And it isn't a just... Oh, look, it could be... Look, they've got an extra preset. So is that in our circuit? I bet it's that. No, it's not shown. So that's been added in. I bet that's it. Yeah, it is. There we go. So we can set S9 to where we'd like it to be. So that's jolly good. I don't think I've seen that before. I've seen them tacked on the back of the meter. So what did I say this was? December 81, so it's a month newer than November, obviously, which is when CB was introduced in the UK. So it just makes me wonder whether they've had a bit of feedback about that and it's been sorted. So that's great, that's better than usual. So we'll solder the speaker back on. And we'll look into the microphone that it's come with. Now they have these chrome screws. This was a couple short. Because we've had that AM set, we've now got some spares. I can't get the shiny ones. We can get zinc plated ones which are, at least aren't the black. So it's nice sometimes to have some correct screws. Seeing as it's come with the thumb screws, some kind of medieval torture. Man, there's probably some dodgy countries still at it. So put that. No, we'll leave it on the test gear while we're working on this other mic. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna. I wouldn't normally do this. We don't normally do mics anyway here, but supplying dealers are supposed to sort mics out. But when we're doing a few end user jobs, this is what we're going to have to do, isn't it? So we've got no transmitted audio. I'll tell you what, we can sort this out in PA mode. Oops, we'll get this plugged into PA. One, two, one, two. So I'll tell you what, we'll start off by taking this apart. If only we had a screwdriver that fitted. As soon as I can get time to finish it, I'm setting up a second signal generator on our bench 4A, which is actually Mr. Chippy's workshop. Bench 4A is our receive only test bench. I'm setting up a second synthesized Hewlett-Packard signal generator so we can do bleed over tests, because I want to see what some of these new sets are like. Chances are they're not as good as people might think. But without people having a silver rod every other house, you can't tell. So let's see what's happening here. Is it open circuit mic? Yeah, it's open circuit mic element, isn't it? So it's not just the Maxon branded Maxon mics that the element's failing, it's the Midland branded Maxon mics as well. So that's open circuit. Now, I ordered from China and it's arrived a microphone insert, so I'll stop the video. So looking at the insert, it's the same diameter, but it's much thicker. Now there's some excess plastic here and that rubber pad, so we can get this in one way or another. And I'm going to start. Oh, I don't know, that fits round there. It's possible that could go in. Try the other approach, put it on the back first. Oh no, you can only get it skew up in there. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll start by putting it in a vise in the organ workshop, and I'm going to cut this plastic bit, because you've got the printed circuit board here, but you've got this excess bit. So I'm going to get a hacksaw to that, and we're going to cut that off. So we've lost 1/4 of an inch that way. Okay, so I've chopped the back off that, as I said I would, and I've wired it up, and it now clamps together. And on PA, I've just tried it myself. It actually sounds half decent. So I'll just put these screws in and then I'll show you. So I got this element from AliExpress. And these are cheaper than those ones from Farnell. STK01780121177 is what it says. I think they're intended for hand microphones, like singers would use. Testing, whoa, 1 2 1 2, testing 1 2, testing 1 2 3. So that's it in PA mode. So that sounds nice and crisp, to be honest. So that was doable. Yeah, it's a faff. I had to cut the back off, but that's not too unusual a mic, and it's fitted all right. Testing 1 2. There we go. So now put the radio on the air. And we'll see if at 9 o'clock in the morning any of those good buddies, bad buddies and indifferent buddies from Nottingham can be heard on this radio. Certainly got new picture-in-picture on. One on a Roger. 19 a Roger. Ha! You've got no chance. Right, there we go. So we're done on the air test later on. And I'm sure that's going to work splendidly. And I'm so glad we've been able to put the mic back into operation. I've just put our little walkie-talkie on. We've heard it on PA. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 1 2. Very crisp. I'll do a comparison when we do the on-air test with our standard replacement mic and that, and then we can make up our mind whether to order some more or whether it's going to be a bit of a one-off. Thanks for watching Midland 2001. Thanks to Alan for donating it, and thanks to me for spending 15 quid on an illegal set that all we can use is bits off. See you next time.